What up? This is Patrick Hayes, and I'm coming to you with Gabe Salomon.
Yeah.
And today we just wanted to turn the camera on because we always have awesome conversations.
Yeah.
And Gabe moved a little bit further away, so we haven't been hanging out quite as much recently.
Yeah.
And we were talking about what's going on in this next decade, like what to expect from 2020 to 2030.
Yeah. What's going to happen?
Yeah, what is going to happen? There's so many potentials.
Yeah.
And there's so many things that are changing and everything's moving so fast. We just wanted to riff a bit on that and let you know what our thoughts are as far as anticipation for the future.
Yeah, and we'll see where this goes. We don't really know.
We don't know.
But we'll find out.
Yes, we will.
Yeah.
But yeah, so when you mentioned that topic, the first thing that came to mind to me was this idea that right now where I feel like the collective consciousness is with the internet, is that the internet is very much like the grounds in which there is a massive synthesis happening. And the synthesis is of all information ever. And all present information that is, or novelty that's being created too.
Right.
And so it's like, now we're in this like information overwhelm space. There's just like tons and tons of different information that is really, there's a lot of noise. So there's not like a great signal to noise ratio, right? There's just tons of noise.
Like filtering.
Right, and so
filtering.
The synthesis process is where we're synthesizing all of this information, and we're learning to distinguish the noise from the actual signal. So, and what I mean by actual signal is like the really useful information that exists, like the useful knowledge for humanity.
Right.
And so right now, it's like you can look up any ancient scripture, or you can look up the newest blog that this person put out, and there's little keys of truth all over the place. And right now, everything's just churning over in itself. And eventually, as human sense-making ability becomes better, we'll start to be able to define, okay, like, this is where the nectar is.
Right.
And then more and more people will realize where the nectar is, and then eventually, there won't be all this noise. People will start realizing what's really practical and utilizable and important.
Right.
And I think these next 10 years is going to be like a major process of developing better sense-making skills, like as a population.
And also like having the digital infrastructure to support that too. I think that we're going to see a big change in how we're treating social media and these different kinds of platforms, to where, right now they're very much like they're very much run in a particular way. Everyone put that on. There we go.
Forgot the light.
Yeah. They're very much run in a particular way to kind of push consciousness in a very specific direction, which isn't always beneficial to us, spiritually speaking. And I think that there's going to be infrastructure that's going to be built digitally that will actually support that synthesis of information.
Right.
And I think that in general, we're going to see infrastructure that is going to be less about big business and more about really getting the right information to the people. It's going to be more. There's going to be people that are going to build systems that are more for the people.
Right. You see this kind of with blockchain, and the attempt that blockchain was and still is trying to. Right.
And we'll see evolution with that. And I think that that I sense very strongly that the whole world is going to get to a point, and we're going to see this over the next decade, where the systems that we have to run the world will be turned over to a more digital cloud-based infrastructure. And I think that we're going to see a lot less of a need for like physical infrastructure to create certain things, and things are going to be a lot more like automated, based off of automation and based off of
robots.
Well, based off of more like neural networks and like positive uses of artificial intelligence and things like that.
Yes. So what are your feelings about like Elon Musk and his whole Neuralink and that whole agenda and everything?
With anything that has to do with machine learning and neural networks and artificial intelligence, it's like anything. It's how you want to use it. An intelligent system is only going to be a reflection of the people that are making it. So if we're making it with a positive intention, and I feel like Elon Musk is doing a lot of really positive and awesome things, and there's more people like him that I think we will see emerge in the next decade. And if the intention is pure to utilize these types of this type of infrastructure, this type of interfacing with reality, then we're going to see the reflection of that. You know? There's a way to do it where it is very negative.
Totally.
There's a way to do it that's really positive.
Is the intention pure? And that's the question. And well, this brings us obviously to parallel dimension shifting. Right. So it's like, well, is your intention pure?
Right.
Is your vibration pure?
And are you in alignment with that version of reality?
Right. Yeah. And then also what is like the gravitational pull of collective reality generation, parallel dimensions, and is there a collective pull that is so strong that it's unlikely to think that a particular individual will be able to shift themselves out of that particular vortex of parallel dimension shifting? And if that vortex that's being created, if these different like really powerful vortexes are being created, what is the kind of how pure is the consciousness that is creating those? So this is all something that we'll find out. I don't know.
I mean, it's so much like a lot of it is will remain to be seen, sort of thing, you know. But I mean, I just feel that once again, if it's pretty simple in the sense that you're always going to harmonize with the version of the collective that is in resonance with you. So it comes back to you and what you're choosing to put forth in your life and what you're choosing to create in your life and how you are carrying out your intention on a day-to-day basis. And that is what's creating those versions of parallel
dimensions. Right. Yeah. And then how coherent is the vision that you're carrying out with the other people? So how coherent is the collective vision that you and the other people are harmonizing with? That being carried out.
Yeah, totally.
Because the greater coherency, the more gravity it has to stabilize as reality. And you know, I think a lot of people talk about parallel dimensions, and I don't think there's enough credence necessarily given to the collective aspect of that. Where I think that people oftentimes when they think about shifting to a parallel dimension, it's very much thought as like, well, I just keep going to like completely individualized dimensions of my own creation 100%, and not weighing in the factor that, well, dimensions are also stabilizing based off of collectives, people, right? And it takes more people to create specific dimensions. And well, I won't get into different demonstrations of that, but I think that needs to be thought of also. So because this is a time where it's beyond like single family units. This is like how are we connecting with other people, and how are we bringing visions into fruition as a collective, as opposed to just doing it in our own individual space. Right.
Yeah. I mean, it has to be understood as that, and it's like so. It's the paradox of it is what you are. It is how you are vibrating. It is the frequency that you're vibrating at. But it also takes into consideration that collectively we all are generating this experience together. So we're only as powerful as the rest of the organism that is Earth, that is the human collective. But so like I guess how do you see like spiritually what then that mean? What does this decade mean spiritually or energetically to you?
To me, like
because we talked about infrastructure,
or like what
are you sensing? What are you feeling?
Spiritually. Well, it's quite interesting because it seems like right now the world in many ways is going through a kind of like dark night. It seems like so many people are waking up, yet they're waking up in a space where it seems externally to be somewhat hopeless or dark. This is how a lot of people are experiencing it. For me, I'm not necessarily experiencing it that way. In the sense that I see so much like all the people surrounding me are doing amazing things, like moving into like a really powerful direction. But just from when I tune into different places, different demographics, and through different people that I like keep my ear to the street by connecting with, there's a lot of focus around the tearing down of the old system. And like the control systems and the matrix and all this like heaviness. And you have like QAnon, and you have the Donald Trump thing, and you have all of the cabal, the dark cabal being, you know, like folding and breaking down and all this kind of stuff. And there's a lot of attention on this whole like tearing down of the old system. And I think that's like, in one sense, that's really powerful and beautiful. But in another sense, it's almost like, how long are we going to spin in that energy? Continue focusing on it. So what I'm seeing is that for a lot of people spiritually, the process will become because first the process in awakening is like identifying like, wait, this is not me. I don't want to be this way. right? I'm actually something else. I don't harmonize with what is.
Yeah.
Right? And then there's the finding out what the problem is, pointing out the problem and being like, this is the problem.
Yeah.
Right? And then you're saying like, okay, well, now that I see the reflection of the problem, that gives me some insight as to what I could choose to be that is,
right.
you know, higher vibration or more what I would like to experience.
Yeah.
Right? And then the process then of, but you can get stuck in the process of identifying the problem and then spinning in the problem.
You cycle in the problem.
Cycling in the problem. And so I feel like the transformation for a lot of people spiritually will be to realize that, okay, we've identified the problem. We could say these people are to blame, you know, if we want to play the blame game. Right. We could kind of make our life about rooting for the structure to be torn down and everything to be changed. Yeah. And a certain amount of that is really healthy, I think. But then at a certain point, it becomes like, okay, where am I? How do I vibrate? And how do I get in tune with my true blueprint? And what is the gift that I have to share the world?
Yeah.
And when you can find the gift that you have to share the world and make that your first priority, as opposed to breaking down the structures that are like oppressing people, then that's where the real gifts, not only not only the gifts for the world that you have to share come from, but the gifts for yourself have to come from, and your spiritual growth comes from. Yeah. Because ultimately, all spiritual growth, all spiritual development comes from coming more into resonance with who you truly are and realizing more of your true nature.
Right.
And so, while all this stuff that's breaking down is a reflection and opportunity for us to do that, I feel like the major challenge, but then also the major like breakthrough and spiritual growth that's coming from these next 10 years is going to be in the people that realize, okay, I don't need to focus on the problem anymore. Yeah. We know that there's problems, but now I'm going to find the solution, and not necessarily the solution to the problem that's outside of me, identify the problem outside of me, or is the solution outside of me, but rather the solution is in coming in tune with who you truly are and realizing that you being yourself is a solution.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So be yourself. Don't try to necessarily focus so much on what needs to be done here and what needs to be done there. That comes as an expression of you being who you truly are. You need to come in resonance with who you truly are first.
Yeah, I and it's like an evolved version of activism. You know?
Right.
Because activism, whatever that word is, all of that, like the protesting and all of that, it's all, like, it all has its place, you know? Right. And it's a good jumping off point. But the thing is that vibration, it never evolves past who to blame.
Right.
You know, it never really evolves past looking at the problem. And so the evolved version of that is basically energetically becoming the solution. Mm-hmm. And living in a way where everything that you are doing is an extension of the solution. Mm-hmm. And solutionary consciousness. And that's where we can see that this time is really about coming together in community with people to create these grassroots sort of movements, mm-hmm. you know, because that is how the new infrastructure is going to solidify. It's not going to come from this political figure and this government, this and this and that, and all of that is all fine, but it's not going to happen from that, you know, from that paradigm. It's going to happen from the people basically choosing to just drop all this nonsense, right? Mm-hmm. Of just moving past the suffering, right? Like just choosing to acknowledge it, but becoming the energetic solution to the things that are causing so much misery in the world, and having that intention and allowing yourself to basically vibrate and resonate with people that share that intention, and then create systems together.
Right.
You know.
Right. Yeah.
And there's no real like there's no real example of this that we can look back in history, you know, with what, you know, most people consider history, right. With like our modern understanding of history. We don't really have too many examples in our society is the point. But we all are very intuitive, and there is a divine blueprint, and there is guidance happening from all these other higher dimensional, higher density sources of energy that are giving us what to do. Mm-hmm. So the more that we just trust in that, and the more that we relax into that, the more that we will see it, and the more that you basically become like the realizer of the vision, right? Because this vision for humanity, it's already set, the blueprint's already there, right? Energetically, it's already there. And so you just have to tune into it and you have to receive it.
Yeah, and I really like what you're saying, because it's really it's like about following the inspiration. And so and I like what you're saying, because you can't look to the past, you can't look to something external. I think this is very much a time of like how to come into resonance with what's inside of you and then express that forward, and that's how we create innovation in a way that's never been created before. And this can't be like a copy paste thing,
right?
Like maybe we've used so many different times to create so many different things, because we need a completely different game than what we're working on. We're moving towards that, and that is inherent within each one of us. It's a seed, and it's inherent in what us coming into resonance with who we truly are, and then living our inspiration. So like I was saying, as opposed to trying to fix problems outside of us, it says fix the problem inside of you by becoming your true self, and then you become the solution to the problems externally. And then that stuff actually, it becomes so much easier because you're acting in resonance with what you feel inspired
You're in flow
to act.
with it,
And that gives you more power than you would ever have by trying to solve things with the mind externally. And, there's a lot of really intelligent people that are coming up with different system designs and all that kind of stuff. And I think that will be successful insofar as it is their true expression being expressed. And they're honoring what they really feel inspired to do, as opposed to just trying to fix problems from a mental space of like problem, solution, banging a hammer.
That is the thing that I feel will change in terms of our mentality and in terms of our approach to things in the next decade, is that we will realize that we can't necessarily fix the issues that are in our world by basically putting a Band-Aid over it. At the beginning of the video, we were like sort of talking about infrastructure and stuff, and all of that is well and good, but also like the infrastructure and building the new systems is only as good as the approach that we bring to those systems. So the biggest shift that I think that we will see is a change in attitude about how we're doing things. It's all about how we're doing. It's like I was thinking about this the other day. We have so many good ideas on our planet. Think about it. Just think about the idea of a car. That's a great idea in principle. A machine that you basically can transport you wherever you want to go, right? Which is an example. So fundamentally, we have a lot of really innovative and good ideas on the planet, but then think about the approach that we're taking. When we're using the fossil fuels and how we're getting those resources, and how we're actually how we are driving the car. Like all of these things, all of the ways that we are approaching these things will have to fundamentally change. And so that approach will have to be an internal energetic shift.
Definitely.
And then we'll start to see some really powerful changes, because we won't be efforting so much. We'll just be flowing with what is and just expressing from that place.
Yes. Definitely. In these changes, so you bring up a great point. So a car, right? It's like, it's an amazing idea, right? But then it's like how it was executed was, we could say, completely out of phase with nature's like intention, you could say, right? So then, and I see this happening, and I feel like some of the original sprouts of the transition to a more harmonious expression of our ideas started with different things like the health food movement, or like green building, these kinds of things, right? Where we're seeing how can we live more in resonance with the harmony of nature, right? Now, originally, obviously, the indigenous did a really good job at living in harmony with nature, right? So a lot of people feel like, well, we need to go back to the indigenous ways. And it's like, well, that's not going to happen. The train is like left the station. We're not going to like go back and stop using computers. It's not going to happen. What we need to learn how to do is take that spark of indigenous wisdom and then let the resonance of that embody our consciousness now, so that we can reinvent the way that we're doing things to be in harmony with nature. And I feel like this is one of the major transformations that's going to be happening for us also. So we're going to see a lot more things like hemp building materials, like hempcretes. We're going to start seeing, my even friend has created a patent for hemp circuit boards. So you can like even do a bunch of in circuit boards, like it takes a lot of materials.
That's amazing.
So all these different ways of being able to harmonize back with nature, so that humans' expression can be an accentuation of nature, as opposed to being opposed to nature.
Right.
Right? So this is one of the major things that has to change, and you see so many different industries trying to move in that direction. There's more organic clothing companies, organic food, so people are doing biodynamic farming and permaculture. They're trying to figure out how to live more in harmony with nature, and this is something that everybody on the planet is starting to realize needs to be done, just because of global warming and even that whole the press surrounding that.
Yeah.
And whether you agree with global warming or the different scientific theories that they're saying are going on or not, we all realize that we're living in a way that is, everything's organic on the planet, but the issue here is that we're taking a lot of things and putting them in the wrong places.
Yeah,
you know?
It's like the most backwards game of Tetris that has ever
Right,
been played.
yeah, it's like
we
matter
just
out
haven't
of
been able to
place.
fit any of the blocks anywhere.
It's just being put completely out of place.
Yeah.
But I'm seeing these new technologies, like there's different laser technologies for taking like chemical runoff out of the soil.
Well,
And there's all sorts of like crazy different technologies that are coming around for people to be able to clean the ocean and all these different things. And so what we're seeing is like on one level, there's all this new innovation to clean things up. And then on another level, there's new innovation for creating actual truly sustainable systems to operate in a new way in the future.
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of this transformation is going to be moving towards that. And the pace at which we move really starts to be created by how much these new innovations can really build a business around themselves and like get out there. Unfortunately, we're in this like business world.
Right.
So what I've been finding for the longest period of time is like the people with the best ideas didn't have the best business sense.
Right.
And so like these ideas are just sitting around.
Yeah.
But the only way to really get something rolling is to make money off of it so
Yeah.
you can support whatever that vision is.
Yeah, and it's fascinating, and it challenges every single person that has the perspective that like money and business can't be part of the equation, because in order really, if we really look at our society, as you were saying, business and finance is part of it. It's how we
At least as a transitionary step.
as a transitionary phase, which could last however many years.
Yeah.
You know, you have to have some sense of this in order to help you get your whatever it is, get your patent, get your vision, get your creative idea out there.
Mm-hmm.
And when you look at the people that are the most influential on the planet, 9 times out of 10, it's because they have a great business sense and they're oriented towards that thing. So I think that we will see, once again, in this next decade, all of that shift. But for the time being, it's important to have that understanding and not to. It's not about rejecting any idea. You know, that's a big thing, a big leveling up.
Right. It's not to fight with.
It's not to fight with, but to harmonize with. Harmonize with what is.
An up vibe. Harmonize and up vibe.
Harmonize and up vibe. That's awesome.
Very much. Yeah.
So whatever is presenting itself, it's to take what is presenting itself, learn to get in vibrational alignment with it, and do it in a way that is full of love and full of passion and full of just the best feelings of all time. And that is how you vibe up. And that's what is required. So every infrastructure, every social political system, everything that is now in the society, if we stop rejecting these things and we just learn how to do it in a new way, in a way that's honoring the earth, that's honoring ourselves, that's honoring the universe, then we will see a change. We'll see powerful changes.
Totally. Yeah. And what he's not saying that you need to harmonize with the broken systems and then perpetuate the systems at all.
Yeah, no.
But there are things that are like disruptive technologies that completely disrupt certain systems, right? So they're out of harmony with that. But what he's talking about is that in order for you to create like a disruptive technology that offsets an entire industry, you have to harmonize with so many different things around that industry. So you have to harmonize with what the collective wants, solving problems that the industry is not solving.
Yeah.
You have to harmonize with people's wishes, with still the ability to help people create a living for themselves. There's so many different things you have to harmonize with. Really strong, way stronger than the previous industry that you're disrupting.
Yeah.
In order to make the disruptive technology actually work. So it is about harmony.
Yeah.
And it's not that you have to harmonize with every broken aspect of the system, but you have to harmonize with enough of it to be able to get some footing and actually up level the system.
And in harmonizing with the positive aspects of it, it's like going back to the car example. The approach that we're taking with it is a little out of whack, right? It's not in harmony with nature. But there's a positive, the fundamental idea of a car is a very positive idea.
Right.
If you think about it, it's a mode of transporting humans from one area to the next. So apply that to literally everything that you see in your existence. You know, the idea of having a bed, that's a good idea. It's a comfortable way of sleeping, right? It's like all of these things that we built fundamentally are good ideas. It's just taking the positive aspect of it, doing it in a way that is placing aside the negative repercussions of it, and just focusing on that and doing it that way.
Absolutely.
Focusing on the positive aspect of it. It's
Absolutely.
so essential. Yeah.
Did it stop?
It went on sleep mode.
How did that happen? What did we lose? Well, and the good news about all this stuff is that all the technology's available to be able to do this the right way, right? And this is part of what I was talking about, the synthesis.
Yeah.
Right? So how are we synthesizing all this information? It's like so many people that are so deep in the old ways and have so much power in the infrastructure of the old system they're so surrounded by a lack of information regarding the new systems. I said that in a weird way, but essentially the people that are in power that can make a lot of change don't even know about all these different opportunities that are available. But that's changing.
Very interesting.
And more and more is changing. And you have people like Yang, is his name Robert Yang, the guy that's running for president?
Yeah.
It's something Yang, the Yang Gang, or whatever.
Yeah.
And you have different people that are coming to the plate with these more kind of like, and I'm not saying I agree with everything that he's talking about, but I think he has some really great ideas. People coming to the table with some really innovative new ways of using technology in a way that's more in harmony with like the kind of world that we'd like to create. And so this is where I see like this synthesis of figuring out what are all the solutions, and then creating better sense-making skills, and then you're talking about different social media platforms where this information can actually be exchanged to where it becomes more common knowledge that there's an availability for this option of creating cars, and Elon Musk is doing that, but this option of creating electricity, or maybe we shouldn't do this whole 5G thing, or maybe we shouldn't link up our minds to
Google
computers,
or
and
the whole thing with that is interesting because there will be a point where the blend of spirit and science, or what's organic and what is technology, will become one, and your mind will be linked to a computer in the sense that you will realize that the mind is already a computer, and that there's this greater universal network that's already governing all of these different things. So if we can create technology that recognizes that there's already a universal blueprint and database that's already governing this whole experience, and the technology becomes a reflection of that, in tune with Spirit's divine plan, then the idea of what is spirituality and what is technology or science, it becomes indistinguishable.
And this is really where I feel like why metaphysics is so important right now. So the idea of esoteric science and metaphysics, really, it's time for a comeback, because for a really long time people used religion as kind of like for better or for worse, use religion as like what a human being is in this realm, like what the purpose of the human is in the realm, and like a greater picture of like the overall, whether it be an incarnation process or what a life means and what happens after death. And in understanding that bigger picture, it gave a set of like standards or morals to how we do things, or understanding in a greater picture of like how we should approach this whole situation that we live in. And originally science was created to figure out the spiritual. Right. That's like originally what it's created for. Now, it wasn't able to do that in the beginning, but what it did was it came up with a lot of, at the time, modern innovations to solve different like lifestyle problems that humans had. And then over time, people kind of forgot about science as being like our ticket to understanding the cosmos, and like we say like spirituality, and they got caught up in all the things that technology can create.
Science became a religion,
and then it became a religion, right? And this is because science had this demonstrable like power to prove all these different things, to make different things happen, and people started having more faith in science, even though it's such this incomplete picture.
Yeah.
And so what happened is people developed this like incomplete reductionist kind of, I don't even want to say metaphysics, but it's like reduced scientism religion is kind of what it is, as being what it is.
Yeah.
And then the going narrative became, well, we're this mistake on a rock spinning in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
That really has no purpose. And then nihilism set in, well, there's no point to life, there's no purpose, might as well just grab all the resources for myself, might as well pimp out the planet and just like create, a pile of money and like, live that kind of life. Because people have gotten completely disconnected from like the metaphysics of like what it means to be human and like where we actually are. So now I think it's this opportunity where the newest kind of fringe scientific discoveries and the people that are really kind of like walking the path of both science and spirituality are being able to describe spirituality through science and science in its connection to spirituality. Yeah. And this is giving us the opportunity to create a holistic system that is way beyond what we've had before. Because before, while we had the opportunity to do all sorts of supernatural things, you could imagine like a monk that had all these different powers.
Right.
Now we're having the ability not only to like know that as a feeling and as an expression and as ability, but as a way of understanding that intellectually and biologically through this language of science that can really expand our capacity of being able to utilize the powers that fundamentally we have access to by just being a human here on this planet, and harmonize them with science so that we can then have all the, basically throw the bathwater out and keep the babies of both of them and really like create like, an amazing expression.
Yeah, and I think that it's important to be able to do that, especially because in our society as it's grown now, our scientific language and the way in which we're relating to science is already very established. So the more that there's people that can create these bridges between spirituality and explaining it in a scientific way and giving the sort of evidence and the demonstrations that correlate to these higher spiritual philosophies, the more it will actually impact our planet, because people will take it into consideration more seriously.
Yeah. It's a bridge, and it's like in a sense, like the new science can be like a new religion, but it has to be a holistic science that incorporates metaphysics and incorporates things that can't necessarily be measured in the way that we think of. So it's like turning science into introspection. So you can use the scientific method to travel the astral realm or to look introspectively into yourself, right? And then and not everything needs to be something that's demonstratable empirically externally, but it can actually, you can find truth in the knowing of certain things or the experience of certain things.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, and I mean, and ultimately, like, in order to demonstrate anything or to show anyone anything, you have to know it for yourself anyway. So to apply that internally is crucial to the equation.
Definitely. Yeah. So this is all really good stuff.
Yeah.
I think that definitely science and spirituality merging is a huge thing. The synthesis of information coming together so we can realize what's important information, what's valid information. That's happening right now. Creating better communication systems. So whether this be like better forms of social media, and then also better forms of communication from human to human too. Right. I think this thing is really big.
Huge, yeah.
Which is like, how do you actually create the kind of environment in which true learning and true communication goes on in a group of people? And this is something I've been working on a lot myself. This has to do with what I consider, one of the aspects of it is creating sacred space as kind of like an aura of the relationship of the people you're with, so that you can create a certain level of trust that really allows people to open up into their true expression, so you can pull forth more of the authenticity within each person, which then gives more gifts to the dynamic of the individual, and then it creates this kind of synergy in which the two people together become more than the sum of their like equal parts. Right. And what about extraterrestrials? Where do you feel like the ET narrative and the direction of like the whole ET thing is going? So
like I just did an interview on Gaia, and that was one of the questions that Ruben asked me. Mm-hmm. And basically what was told to me very specifically over the summer, and I was just sitting outside one night, and it was just like I remembered, this is that basically the way that at least the groups that communicate to me, the way that they are viewing contact is in 3 phases. So like up until this point, we've been in this like incubation phase of phase 1, where like we've just basically, for the people that are meant to be tuned into this information at this time, you know, everyone is tuned into it at a different point of their evolution. Basically, we've just been in this phase of like remembering and like reconnecting on an energetic level to the multidimensional aspects of ourselves that we consider to be extraterrestrials. I put that in quotation points because like our idea of an extraterrestrial is like this, and like it's so much more expanded than what a lot of people consider an extraterrestrial. But basically, as we move into this next decade, like we enter into this new phase, the second phase of what is being considered first contact, where basically like it's going to accelerate a lot, and maybe not on a global level, but for individuals that are ready to have more contact, there's going to be a lot more of a physical anchoring of it. You know, so an example I used is this was just what was given to me as I was sitting there in this experience. It's like maybe you go on a walk in the woods and you see a ship or you see an energy, and then maybe a month later you're walking somewhere else in a secluded area and you see it again, and then maybe 3 months later you're walking and you see an energy that's there, okay, and then the thing builds, and eventually, and it's not so much about when or how or time and date and everything, but eventually it's going to get to the point where for the individuals that are basically vibrationally ready for these kinds of experiences, they'll be more physical and tangible,
more frequent, more integrated, and more actually like in the physical
realm.
Right?
Exactly. And you might not necessarily be, you know, blasting off in the spaceships right away, but you will. There's going to be a lot of people that are going to experience these kinds of things in a very physical way, and everyone right now who's on this path is energetically preparing for that, because it's kind of going to be one of these things where it's gonna take the world by storm a little bit. You know, there's going to be people. This is all on a very specific timing, and there's going to be people that aren't quite ready to accept this, and that's okay. But it's going to happen, and you're going to see it. And like I said, it's going to be, in comparison to the majority of the demographic of the world, it's going to be to a relatively small group of people that are vibrationally ready to actually interface with that, because the last thing that they want to happen is for you to be overwhelmed by any of this. It's not meant to be an overwhelming process. It's meant to be a harmonious and beautiful thing, a very deeply heart-opening thing. But we're preparing for that, and that's going to happen. And so this next 10 years very much is solidifying this second phase of first contact. And then eventually, when we're ready on a more global scale, like I said, this next phase it's more a specified group. But it's still going to be quite a lot of people, but maybe just not the majority in comparison to the billions of people that we have on our planet. But then eventually we'll be ready to enter into like the last phase, the third phase of contact, which is basically initiating our society as a galactic civilization.
Right. Star Trek.
Yeah, Star Trek.
Yeah,
that's what Star Trek is. Star Trek is literally channeling a future version of where we're going.
Totally. Totally. Yeah, but I really like that. So it's in a sense like vibrationally tuning to make yourself available to the higher frequencies. That's really, you're gonna break it down really simply.
Yeah.
It's like vibrationally, can you handle the kind of vibrations? And so what happens if you're put around a really, really high vibration is it can cause extreme panic in somebody that has a lot of like unresolved stuff, right? And so a lot of people are just completely blocked to this idea. So it seems like in the beginning and this has gradually been happening. In the beginning, there's a few people, but then as the consciousness becomes more porous, meaning there's certain demographics of the consciousness that are really raising their vibration, they're becoming porous and available for these different frequencies to come down, they start having more and more experiences, but it still may be for a long period of time that there's large demographics of people that completely, like, is not part of their reality. They completely don't believe it and are extremely resistant to it. And so there's going to be, in a sense, a certain level of polarizing. There already is. there's a lot of people like these ET cults, and some of them are cults, and some of them
I'm
maybe
sure
are
some of
dangerous,
them are cults,
right?
yeah.
But there's like these ET people or whatever. Some people are like totally like not available for that.
Right.
But you even see in the mainstream news and stuff now they're like bringing like a lot of like
UFO sightings,
UFO, all
and
this kind of
stuff.
stuff is like popping out. So it's like the consciousness is definitely being cultured, you know, and been preparing for this.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely, and look, it's like there's definitely a gradient. Like, there's some people that I won't even touch upon this kind of conversation with.
Right.
And there's certain people even in the spiritual community that I won't touch upon this conversation with, because some of the stuff, like, depending energetically on where you're at, like, some of the stuff that I could tell you might not even make sense to certain people.
Right.
Even if they believe in extraterrestrials,
totally.
even if they've seen a sighting, some of the stuff that I have undergone in the past few years in my experiences might not even make any sense.
It might make sense.
Yeah.
And you can feel that when you're talking to people too.
Yeah.
Like what I would notice is that like as I would start leaning into certain conversations, it's like what I say starts like doing this. It starts like going around them. And then I can even feel like where I know exactly how to describe what I want to describe, but all of a sudden the words don't. It starts stuttering and it stops, and I'm like, okay, their field it's just not available in their field, right? Yeah. So then I've gotten a lot better at being able to feel out when a conversation's appropriate or not, as opposed to trying to like jam it down someone's throat. Where a lot of people sometimes in the beginning, it's like they want to tell everyone everything, and it's like, I mean, everyone does need to know, but they'll know in their own time.
You learn how to kind of tailor that a little bit so that you can be more of service to people, not overwhelming so much.
It's actually it's like not being so selfish. It's like learning how to present yourself in a way that
can relate to this person.
That is thoughtful. Thoughtful enough that it's harmonious with the person, instead of trying to be like, well, this is just me and I got to express it and saying it however you want.
Yeah. And by the way, and on the topic of ETs and all this other stuff, there's a lot of people who will be tuning into this who are actually in training to be people that will help the collective acclimate to extraterrestrials. So, like, for example, if an extraterrestrial is standing there, I'm just using me as an example because I know that I'm one of these people. I'm going to be standing in between you and this extraterrestrial to basically calm you down, and this, and
it's like a translator.
It's a translator, basically like a middleman or like a conduit that filters that energy so that it can be relatable and it can be a little less scary, because these experiences can be overwhelming. For me, I have these experiences like literally almost every night, and there's still a lot of times where I'll be on a ship astrally, and an ET will walk into the room, and I will completely black out because the energy is so high.
And it's just very. I mean, it's almost similar in a sense where like if you realize a big spider is on you, you're like that kind of feeling. And so it's like sometimes when you're merging with different beings, it's like, well, this being is actually inside of you, and it almost is the same reaction of like, oh, just get it. I gotta get it. Like it's like really, brings you into this panic space.
Yeah, to this uncomfortability.
Quite uncomfortability. Sure. But then as you notice, oftentimes, especially obviously if you're working with high vibrational beings, that actually when you tune into the vibe of it, it's a beautiful vibe. It's just almost like it's taking you on a roller coaster ride that's so fast that it's like scares the shit out of you.
Dude, totally.
But it's like when you can relax into it, it's invigorating. You see your energy like up, it gets really high.
I mean, it's a big there's still some experiences that I have. I recently had this experience like in the past few months where I was basically interfacing with like a 12-foot tall like reptoid type of humanoid being, and my fucking heart was going so much, dude. Like it was powerful and beautiful.
Totally.
Actually, if you watch the interview that I did on Gaia TV, which
is that out yet?
It will be airing in the new year.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I talk about that experience, but oh man, it was so beautiful, but it was so overwhelming. So you can imagine if you can really imagine like an extraterrestrial appearing in front of you, really think about how you would actually react to that.
Well, so here's the thing: is that your mind might be in a way prepared for it.
Yeah.
But your biology is not prepared for it.
Dude.
And this is it's a really like intense, crazy thing.
It's very intense. And that's also, by the way, why these different groups will be introduced in phases.
Right. And
the groups that will be introduced to us first are the ones that are most like us. Mm-hmm. And look, when you're interacting with extraterrestrials, every group is very vibrationally different. There's groups, a lot of the hybrid groups, I interact with them all the time. I'm extremely comfortable with them. It's just like hanging out with Patrick in this moment. It's like very comfortable. There's other groups where I get around them and I'm like, my body doesn't know what to do. It's like completely in shock. Yeah. And so yeah, you're not the first beings we're gonna see are not 12-foot tall reptilian beings. No, they're gonna be people that look
just
like
about
us.
Indistinguishable.
Yeah,
it's like the vibration, and you might even met them before,
right?
Because they're around, and it's like and like the vibe is like you can tell vibrationally that something's different. But now it's getting to the point where a lot of humans have anchored enough of these vibrations that people that were alien before, now I can feel that in humans that I know are human. Yeah. Too. So it's really cool, but that's part of the preparation process. Yeah. It's like humans are stabilizing these vibes so that you can get used to that vibe through a human without having to see it for the first time from an extraterrestrial. Yeah. Yeah. That is one of my first experiences. I woke up with an ET on my stomach looking down at me with this giant smile on his face. Yeah, I've had a few. And it was like it took me years to even remember that experience happened because I was just like, and now in my memory of it, it's like I sat there and I was like, and I didn't know what to do with it. There was no place for me to kind of like integrate it into my reality. So I was just kind of.
Was a hybridized extraterrestrial?
It was. I still don't know exactly what kind it was, but he was green. Yeah. And he was, and he wasn't in the flesh, so he was higher dimensional, and so he was just glowing. He was like translucent. It's like a glowing green, and he had this giant grin on his face. Yeah. And it was a high vibe, it was a positive vibration, but still, it was like, what do I didn't know what to do with it, I didn't know how to integrate it, I just sat there with like a stupid look on my face, I'm sure somebody was looking at me, and then I was just like, okay, and I guess I'm getting up and go to the bathroom. And like, that was just the end. But these kinds of things, oftentimes they happen in your dream states. Yeah. You have dreams where there'll be like some crazy like glowing frog in like an ayahuasca ceremony or something. And the frog will like the frog will like bring you in and then like kind of like hug you with its like vibration, and you'll either like spiral vortex out of that dimension if you can't handle it, or you'll sit there and you'll like integrate the vibration and steep in it for a while. And these are just basically harmonizing yourself to different frequencies to prepare you.
The way that that's exactly the way that one of the ways that it happens to me. Sometimes it happens where I'll just like be laying there and then I'll like actually just like find myself in a different dimension. But most of the time the way that it happens is like I'll be in this particular dream state and it'll be like that. There's like a frog or there's something that I'm interacting with and I'm not quite lucid, and then all of a sudden I become very lucid and I realize that frog isn't a frog at all, and the environment that I'm in isn't the environment that I thought I was in, and all of a sudden I'm actually like in a council room, and the frog is actually like an ET who's looking who's much taller than I am, and like all these like trees that I thought were trees are actually these other extraterrestrials like on computers and on different devices, and I'm like, this is where I am. Yeah.
And I think that's very much a metaphor for what's happening. See how it's like it gradually it like came in, it was something that was comfortable to you, and then it like morphed into something else. That's very much the same process that's happening on planet Earth. So it's like coming in through humans, vibrations, people are getting used to the vibrations, and then as the reality, the veil keeps getting lifted, we'll be like starting to realize, that vibration coming through these people was actually connected to these star beings that were speaking through them, and they're actually part of the lineage of those star beings, and as it pans out, it'll start making more and more sense. Yeah. But it's like, it has to start with something that works and that's comfortable, and then slowly bleed into the next expression. Yeah.
And I mean, that's how it's going to be with not just the extraterrestrial thing, but just all of these changes that we see on our planet. There's a sort of a bunch of older theories of like, ascension happens overnight and there's like a rapture and it's all, but it's really not like that. It really is this gradual process of unfolding over many decades, and the changes that we will see will really manifest, not just it will happen over your lifetime. Let's put it that way.
A lot of change. I mean, even if you're just feeling how much has changed in the last 6 months for all this,
it's crazy.
Just imagine what the future will be like is just, you can't imagine it. You can play with ideas because it's fun. But yeah, well, thanks so much, man, for coming
Dude, of
on
course.
and just having the convo. It was good stuff, man. Yeah, this is Gabe Salomon. You can check him out. You got some handles?
Yeah, youtube.com/Gabe Salomon, GabeSalomon. My website is just my name.
Yeah, and if you watch Gaia, he's got an interview coming out on Gaia. What's the name of the show?
It's called Interview with Ed, Interview with Extradimensionals. It's hosted by a guy named Ruben. He's awesome. And that will be coming out in the new year, so you can check that out. And yeah, basically, I'll have the rest of the links in the description of this video.
For sure. Much love. See you guys next time.